Hi, good day. This is Cherian Kruvula here, a business mentor, coach, facilitator. And this intro is about a recent talk I had at a marketing summit, and the reason why I agreed to be a speaker at the marketing summit was that the topic was of interest to me, right? Because I realized while it's the marketing summit and everybody's going to be talking about marketing and branding and all the elements of digital and social media and stuff like that, I wanted to bring the whole aspect that marketing is more about people and less about many of the other things that are normally spoken about, right? So the topic of the whole theme of the summit, or at least the session which I took, was about marketing is no longer about B2B or B2C. It's about P2P. Right? So I want to bring in that human element, the fact that the role that people play, the role that culture plays, the role that customer experience plays, the role that training plays, and the fact that each one of them has got its own place to actually make or break a brand, make or break a repeat experience from a customer, make or break the word of mouth. And to me, these were a lot more critical and a lot more important than spending big bucks on, PR, or spending big bucks on influencers, or spending big bucks on social media, because that was hard sell, whereas this was actual experience. And I think that was the gist of what I was trying to cover in my 40 minutes. This is just an intro to a small snippet, about 6 odd minutes of that 40 minutes, which you can just listen in. And if you'd like to know more and curious about what all got discussed, and the various examples and case studies that I spoke about, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be more than happy to take it on from there. Thank
Yeah,
you. Good day to all of you. Great having you all over here, and really happy to have this opportunity to speak at this summit. And quite contrary to what typically would get discussed in the marketing summit, I'm going to be talking a lot more about people and a lot less about marketing. Right? And I think it's important that I bring in this whole people aspect to this business. And if I go back to my own experience over the last 40 years, in both in the corporate sector where I spent close to 30 years, and the last 14 odd years as an entrepreneur, as a mentor and coach, right? My experience has been traversing across B2C and B2B. Right. So my first job was B2C, my second job was B2B and B2C, my third job was B2C and B2B, the fourth job was largely B2C. And as I worked in the last 14 years with a variety of entrepreneurs and organizations, right, they've been in all kinds of businesses, B2B, B2C, whatever. And I realized that, what matters at the end of it, it's about whether you're into the IT industry or the education industry or the healthcare industry or the manufacturing industry. Frankly, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you have a product or a service, you have a customer or a consumer, you have a marketplace that you want to reach out to them, and you have a way of finding the best way of getting across to them, right? So if you look at this graph or this circle that is there, I think the circle of marketing, right? The first element talks all about the product or service. It's your product or service that is most critical for you to get out there, right? Then comes uh, the customer segment, the consumer segment. Who are your target segment? Who are your focus segments? Who are the ones you'd like to deal with the most? Are you focusing on the HNI segment? Are you focusing on a particular sector? Are you focusing on education sector? Are you focusing on healthcare? Are you focusing on uh, uh, a home buyer? Are you focusing on a large corporate? So once you've clearly defined that, which I think is a very basic of marketing, but a lot of organizations miss out that fine tuning of the refinement in terms of what is required. Then comes, how are you going to reach out to them? What is your channel? How are you going to reach out to them? Are you going to go direct? Are you going to go through distributors, retailers, alliance partners? And what are the different ways that you can get across your product or service to your target segments, which may be different. I mean, it's quite possible that you have multiple target segments that you're focusing on, and that could be uh, That could be one thing that you will definitely cover. So once you've got that in place, and you know that I've now clearly defined my product or service, I've now clearly defined my target segment, I have now clearly identified which could be the best channels I could get across, either through collaboration or alliances, or doing it myself, or through e-commerce, or through modern trade, or through whichever channel that you think is most appropriate for your business, right? And then comes in terms of how are you going to get that message across out there. And that is where the whole marketing communication piece comes in, right? The marketing communication piece comes in, because what you communicate, how you communicate, to whom you communicate, how do you connect with the consumer, how do you create that empathy, how do you create that wow factor, right? It's not about overselling, it's not about hard selling, it's about understanding the mind of the consumer, right? I think to a large extent, I think when I say people to people, right, people to people is all about connecting with the other person as a consumer, connecting the other person as a customer, right? And understanding what will it take for that person to inquire about your product, what will it take for that person to reach out to find out more, what will it take for that person to be convinced that, look, I think this is the best one to go in for. So to a large extent, it's all about the way people connect with people and understand what will actually sell, right? So I call this the wheel of marketing, the marketing wheel. And whatever you look at it, at the center of the wheel is the communication and experience. I think to me that's the most important part of the whole story that I'm going to talk about. Now, sometimes you might wonder what is P2P? Why am I talking a lot about P2P, right? P2P is about people to people. It could be about peer to peer, right? It could be about product to profit. Now, these are all things that are important from a marketing viewpoint, right? And if you look at this particular slide, for example, right, this is the life cycle of an organization, or it could be the life cycle of a product, right? Most products or services or organizations would go through this cycle, right? The startup stage, the early stage, the growth phase, the stuck up phase, the mature phase, and then maybe a slowdown or a phasing out phase, right? So whether it's a product or a service or an organization, many of them go through these kind of curves. And unless the marketing team and the business teams are so clued on to what's happening in the market, they could just get wiped out through a technology change. I don't talk too much about technology and AI because that's already being covered by the other speakers. But the fact is that sometimes it could be because of technology, sometimes it could be because of poor leadership, it could be because of poor strategy, it could be because of poor culture, and even the best product or the best service may not succeed in the marketplace because the whole experience that the customer or the consumer is having out there is not what it ought to be, right? So that is the important point that has to be considered, right? If you want to keep your organization relevant, if you want to keep your product or service relevant, you got to be constantly reinventing yourself, constantly clued on to what's happening in the marketplace. And I've been in marketing headquarters myself, and I must say that many of the marketing headquarters folks are pretty disconnected from what's the ground reality, right? What's the ground reality? And I think that's very important. So marketing with a sales mindset, I think, is what I think is important, right? Marketing with a sales mindset. Whoever is in marketing or product or uh, branding or PR cannot be sitting in an ivory tower and deciding, okay, let's do this or let's do that, because what works on the ground is necessarily not what looks good in a marketing pitch, right? And this is where a lot of organizations actually miss out. In this chart, I talk about this famous title from the author Marshall Goldsmith. It's "What got you here will not get you there." A lot of marketing companies fail for the simple reason that their marketing goal is clear, what they want to achieve is clear. How they go about it, what they do, how they break it down into actionable items, how they measure the progress, uh, are all driven by people, right? And if that people element is weak, the best marketing strategy will not work. Right? So the way I look at it, what I'm covering in this particular slide is about the fact that there are three or four different scenarios the way I look at it. Uh, One is the fact that it could be the company which is the brand. Some cases it could be that the organization is the brand. Organization of the company. Some cases it could be that the product or service is the brand. Some cases it could be that the people are the brand, the salespeople or the frontline people are the brand. And the fourth one could be that the customer experience is the brand. So I will be talking about each one of them to say what role each one could play. So you could go back and reflect in your own organization in terms of, you know, which one do you think is more relevant to your organization? Is it your company that is getting you the business, or is it your product that's getting you the business? Is it your people who are getting the business, or is it your customer experience that's getting you the business? And once you're clear about that, you'll possibly find that however great the company or the product or service is as a brand, right? If the people element, the training element, the culture element, and also the customer experience element are not up to the mark, not to the level they could be at, right? Then it is sooner or later going to translate into poor sales, it's going to translate into poor business, it's going to translate into more losses of business, lower market shares, lower profitability, and end of the day, the whole marketing game is over, right? No amount of influencers or no amount of PR can save that. I think this is really the crux of what I was trying to share in this whole presentation. I'll be happy to share more with anybody who is really interested in knowing more. Please do reach out to me, and I hope that this video has given you some kind of a snapshot of the whole aspect of what I talk about. Marketing is no longer about B2B or B2C. It's all about P2P. It's not something new. It's been there in the past, it's been there in the present, it will be there in the future. And it's not some new trend that suddenly started from today, right? So while I'm talking about the topic, it's more from a lot of experiences that I've had from the past and from the present, and I'm sure that it'll hold pretty strong and steady in the future as well. Thank you.